Naruto. Sasuke. The two shouted as they sprinted at each other, pushing their power to the absolute limit. Naruto was cloaked in a raging aura with 3 burning tails and a blood-red Rasen shuriken in hand. Even as he charged forward, he prepared himself mentally to tear away the mental seal imprisoning the beast within. Sasuke, in his Cursed Seal's second transformation, had a Chidori that crackled with murderous energy. He was ready to finish this for good. As their attacks collided, Sasuke poured every ounce of chakra into his technique, while Naruto yanked the seal wide open. The resulting detonation was catastrophic. Stone and soil erupted, obliterating the entire clearing. The two 18-year-olds were sent flying. Sasuke's power faded as his body reverted to normal. Naruto, however, was in critical shape, his chest shredded and bleeding, and the Nine-Tails' unleashed energy began spiraling toward the gaping seal on his abdomen, being dragged in like a vortex. But Naruto didn't notice any of that. He could feel his life slipping away, hear screams, his own voice echoing in his ears. Strangely, he realized he was screaming in 2 places. From his broken, battered body and from somewhere else entirely, what he assumed was his soul. The red chakra spiraled from his physical form through the spectral chain linking him to his spiritual self. Then came the weightlessness. The energy stopped. His body no longer breathed. The chain broke. Naruto Uzumaki had died. Sasuke Uchiha had not. Sasuke slowly dragged himself upright and walked over to Naruto's corpse, sinking to his knees beside it. A strange emptiness filled him. He thought this would bring satisfaction, defeating Naruto, ending their rivalry once and for all. But instead, all he felt was grief. Meanwhile, Naruto drifted in confusion until a deep, familiar voice echoed. "Well, hello again, Kit," Naruto blinked. "Fox, I thought you were gone." "I was, for a moment," the Kyuubi growled. "But when you tore open the seal, your body instinctively tried to use my chakra to heal. That failed and pulled me in instead." "Wait, so why are you here? In my spirit form?" "Looks like your soul absorbed mine through the link," the fox said, sounding unimpressed. "And now I'm stuck with you, not exactly the freedom I hoped for," Naruto sighed. "Well, since we're stuck together, you'd better be useful." "Fine, speaking of useful, look over there." Naruto turned and saw them. 3 monstrous beings. All pitch black with bony white masks and gaping holes in their chests. The first resembled a hulking rat with an ape-like mask. The second had 4 twisted limbs ending in razor-sharp claws, and a scorpion-like tail curled behind it. Its mask had a pointed chin and narrow, snake-like slits for eyes. The third resembled a grotesque spider, with 12 legs in total, 8 supporting its body and 4 curved like sickles. Its mask was round and toothy. Naruto's eyes widened. These monsters were massive, towering over him like he was an ant. The spider-like one scoffed. "This little insect has that incredible pressure? Ridiculous." The rat nodded. The scorpion, however, studied Naruto in silence. "Even if it's not him, he'll make a fine energy source." "He's yours," the spider sneered, walking off. "We'll find stronger prey," Naruto scowled. "Side dish." "Really?" He stepped forward. "Got a name, big guy," the scorpion chuckled. "Bold, aren't you? I'm called Slicer, and yes, I'm going to devour you." Naruto readied a Rasengan or tried to, nothing formed. "What the? I can't feel my chakra," he panicked. A strange energy pulsed inside him, unfamiliar and raw. Slicer lunged. Naruto dodged just in time, relieved his speed hadn't changed. "He's fast," Slicer thought, swiping again and missing. Naruto grinned. Evasive maneuvers were easy, but winning was another issue. Suddenly, claws came from both sides and a tail from above. No escape. He shut his eyes and braced for impact. Then came the sound of steel slicing through flesh. Naruto cracked an eye open. The pressure around him had changed. Slicer was missing limbs. A woman stood in front of him, katana in hand. She moved like lightning, cleaving the mask in one stroke. Slicer vanished. Naruto stared in awe. "Are you all right?" she asked, sheathing her blade. "Why yeah, what was that and, who are you?" "That was a hollow, a corrupted soul." "I'm a soul reaper, we purify the hollows and guide souls to the afterlife." Naruto took a step back when she raised her weapon toward him. "Whoa, wait, what are you doing?" "Sending you to the Soul Society," she said, gently tapping his forehead. "At least tell me your name first," she smiled faintly. "Soy Fan," and Naruto vanished. He reappeared in a weathered district that felt both alive and broken. Curious, he asked around and learned he'd landed in District 79 out of 80, the closer to 1, the cleaner and safer the districts became. He approached an old man sweeping the street. "Excuse me, sir. What's going on?" "Ah, fresh arrival, huh? The Soul Reapers are recruiting again." "Think I can sign up?" Naruto asked eagerly. "They're picky," the man said, pointing down the alley. Naruto saw three figures. Two looked young. A girl with dark hair parted in the middle and a boy with red hair in a ponytail looking smug. He recognized the third instantly. "Soy Fan," he shouted, waving. She turned and narrowed her eyes, then remembered. The blonde, whiskered soul with piercing blue eyes. "Naruto," she said calmly, walking over. The two recruits followed. "So I hear you're recruiting?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Interested?" "Count me in," he grinned. She nodded to the girl. "This is Rukia." "Nice to meet you," she said politely. Then to the boy. "And this is Renji Abarai." Renji frowned. "Why do you know the captain?" "You got a problem with that punk?" Naruto growled. "You don't look like much. I bet I could beat you easy." "I wouldn't even need my hands," Naruto smirked. Renji snapped and threw a punch, but Naruto was already gone. A moment later, Renji was on his face, dirt in his teeth. Naruto stood with his leg extended. "Told you." Soifan was impressed. His speed wasn't normal for a new soul. His spiritual energy, it was already formidable. Rukia blinked in awe. 1 second Naruto was there, the next, Renji was down. Naruto turned to Soifan. "So, about joining, how do I start?" "You'll enter the academy," she explained. "You'll learn spiritual techniques, movement skills, and unlock your Zanpakuto." "What's a Zanpakuto?" Naruto inquired. Soifan drew her blade and held it up for him to see. "This is a Zanpakuto. It's the physical embodiment of a soul reaper's spirit," she explained simply. "All right, let's get moving," Naruto said with a nod, prompting Soifan to follow. "Oi, flamehead. Move it," Naruto called out to Renji as they began walking. Renji grumbled under his breath, clearly irritated by the pace. Later, at the Soul Reaper Academy, Naruto looked on in awe. The academy was massive. The central structure had a roof shaped like a pagoda, with wings extending left and right, leading toward a wide entrance. The compound was encircled by high walls, creating a fortress-like feel. After stepping through the entrance, Naruto saw that the building spanned 3 floors, its facade lined with windows. Once inside, he realized the pagoda-like structure housed a grand auditorium. They were told to take their seats and wait. The room steadily filled with other students. Soifan turned to them with a rare smile. "Enjoy your next 6 years here," she said before vanishing in a blur of speed. Naruto blinked in surprise. "She's ridiculously fast," he thought. His attention shifted as an elderly man with a long beard made his way onto the stage. "Welcome to the Soul Reaper Academy, new recruits," he announced in a commanding voice. "And good fortune to those continuing their training." He gestured, and some students departed while others remained. Naruto assumed those staying were the fresh intakes. "My name is Genryusai Shichikuni Yamamoto," the old man said. "I serve as the head captain and lead the first division." He tapped his staff on the floor, and several individuals stepped forward. "These instructors will guide you in all you need to become true soul reapers," he explained. "You will train in Kaido, Ho-Ho, and Zanjutsu," Yamamoto continued. "Now, please proceed through the doors behind me to receive your Zanpakuto." The curtains behind him parted, revealing 3 doors. "Will 3 students please step forward?" Naruto scanned the hesitant crowd. Most students looked nervous. Not one to wait around, Naruto glanced at Renji and Rukia. "Well, I'm not standing around. I'm going," he said, rising confidently and approaching the old captain. "I'll go first, Gramps," Naruto said with a grin. Yamamoto chuckled at the boy's boldness. We're going too," Renji called out, dragging Rukia along. With a small smile, Yamamoto watched as all 3 entered separate doors, which then closed behind them. Those 3, they might become close allies one day, he mused. Darkness. That was the first thing Naruto noticed. A red hue soon lit the space around him, accompanied by the sound of dripping water. "Wait, I know this place," Naruto muttered, recognizing the familiar sensation of his inner world. He walked along the path toward the large chamber with the towering barred gates. As expected, the gates were open. He could sense the unusual energy, one that resembled the presence he felt from the hollow named Slicer. "Yo, Fox," Naruto called, only to hear a low growl from a glowing red door off to the right. "Huh, that wasn't there before," he said, cautiously approaching. The door bore the words Yin and beneath it, Hollow. Naruto took a few steps back. He wasn't in the mood to deal with another hollow. Suddenly, a gentle, melodic laugh came from behind. He turned to see another door, glowing warmly in white light. This door was labeled Yang with the word Zanpakuto underneath. Naruto, curious, grabbed the handle and pulled it open. In an instant, he was pulled through and landed in a vast, grassy field. The door behind him vanished. Above, red rose petals drifted through the sky, filling the air with a sweet fragrance. "Beautiful place," he murmured. "Do you like it?" A soft female voice asked from behind. He turned and saw a breathtaking woman with fiery red hair and eyes to match. She wore a pink kimono adorned with roses, her figure flawless and radiant. "Don't stare so hard, Naruto," she teased with a laugh. "You're making me blush." He snapped out of his daze. "Ah, sorry, wait, how do you know my name?" She giggled again. "I've been part of you since you were born." "Really? Mind telling me your name?" "Of course, I'm Shuryo Kitsune." "Nice name," Naruto said, smiling. The compliment made her beam and she suddenly hugged him tightly. "You heard my name clearly?" she asked excitedly. "Yeah. Why wouldn't I?" Naruto replied, genuinely puzzled. "Some Soul Reapers can't hear their Zanpakuto's name right away," she said, holding him more tightly. "Oh," he murmured. "So you're my Zanpakuto?" "Yes," she replied with a smile. "And if you ever need to call upon my strength, just say my name and bring me down in a slashing motion, all right?" Naruto nodded. "And if you ever want to talk, just focus on this place as you fall asleep," she continued. "It's time for you to go now." "Yeah, guess it is," he said, turning toward the glowing doorway that had formed nearby. He stepped forward, giving Shuryo a warm hug. "Catch you later," he said, opening the door and stepping through. As it shut behind him, he noticed a strange weight hanging from his left side. Looking up, he saw Yamamoto, Rukia, and Renji watching him. "Let's have a look at your Zanpakuto," the elderly man instructed as he approached. Naruto gave a nod and rested his hand on the crimson hilt, slowly drawing the blade. It resembled a standard katana in shape, but the coloration stood out. From the deep red hilt, the blade stretched out in black metal, with glowing red streaks spiraling along both edges. As he held the weapon, Naruto smiled. It felt right, natural, even. He could feel the spirit within it. "You three should locate your quarters and get some rest before tomorrow," Yamamoto said, nodding. The trio gave their goodbyes and headed off down the hallway. Naruto was the first to spot it, a door with all their names on it. "No way," he said, running up to it. "What is it, Naruto?" Rukia asked, peering over his shoulder. He stepped aside. "We're all sharing a dorm," he beamed. Rukia grinned and flung the door open. "I'm calling first dibs on the shower, and I swear, anyone who peeks is dead," she warned, shooting a glare at Renji before dashing into the bathroom. Naruto chuckled. Not much to look at anyway, he thought, smirking. She's flatter than a rice cracker. He flopped onto a bed, letting his muscles relax. Tomorrow would be the beginning of his new journey. 3 years later, sweat rolled down his back as he pushed himself harder during training. The blade sliced through the air with practiced ease. He was pushing himself, preparing for a duel that had come out of nowhere. It all started when his temper got the better of him again. Flashback: Naruto had just finished classes and was walking through the corridors when someone collided with him. "Watch it," barked a burly man, grabbing Naruto by the collar and lifting him. Naruto slapped the man's hand away. "Maybe you should watch where you're going, you ran into me." The muscly-bound student shoved him. "You don't want to make me your enemy. I'm stronger than you can imagine, and I come from one of the most elite families." Naruto snorted. "Wonderful, a stuck-up noble with a superiority complex." The man's hand went to the hilt of his sword. "I'm Jonathan Persley," he said, "and I challenge you to a match in the arena. It won't take long, Zensume Supeiku, and I will wipe the floor with you." With that, he pushed Naruto aside and walked off. End of flashback. Naruto sighed and sat down, trying to calm his breathing. "Man, I hope I can finally activate my Shikai," he muttered. Despite knowing her name, he still hadn't fully synchronized with his Zanpakuto. Each attempt only resulted in a massive surge of energy without any transformation. It was like being a rookie all over again. He sheathed Shuryo and stood. Mental training was just as important. He headed back toward the dorms. Back in his room, Naruto flopped onto the bed and quickly fell asleep. Inside Naruto's mind, he awoke on a field of soft grass and looked up to see her again. She sat calmly, sword resting across her knees. "Ready to train?" she asked, glancing at him. Naruto stood and drew his blade. "Always, I want to grow stronger." She smiled and rose. "I like that fire in you," she said, and suddenly lunged. He barely managed to block the first strike. Their blades clashed again and again, Naruto attacking and defending, though he quickly realized how outclassed he was. Her skill was far above his. Then, she sprang back and launched forward with a wide upward slash. Naruto ducked just in time, but the tip nicked his nose. Before he could recover, she had already let go of the sword, sending it flying. Before he could process what happened, a barrage of punches and kicks hit him from all angles, too fast to follow, like dozens of fists and feet striking all at once. He was thrown back, crashing to the ground. His blade embedded itself in the earth beside his head. Naruto groaned and sat up, looking at her just in time to see her catch her sword with grace. "That was incredible," he muttered, brushing dust off himself. She grinned. Thanks. I've always been better with close combat anyway, she said as she approached. You should get some rest though, gotta be ready for that match. He gave a nod. I'm not too concerned, he replied. That guy was massive, sure, but he seemed like the flashy type. He paused, seeing her shake her head. Some of the noble clans actually take their training seriously. Naruto considered that. Yeah, back when I was alive, I saw plenty of nobles who worked hard to improve. Shiryo nodded. All the more reason to rest. You'll need all your energy if he turns out to be the real deal. Naruto let out a sigh. All right, he said, lying down and getting comfortable. Good night, Shiryo Kitsune. His eyes drifted closed as sleep took hold. Shiryo smiled gently. Good night, Naruto, she whispered before turning and walking away. She reached a door and stepped through, entering the vast chamber of the seal. I know you're there, show yourself. A guttural growl echoed from behind a door marked Yin, and it creaked open to reveal a massive, slitted fox eye. So you're the kid's Zanpakuto, the nine-tailed fox said, scrutinizing her. What type are you, Kaido-based or close combat? She smirked. Melee type, naturally. And what are you supposed to be, his hollow? The demon chuckled darkly. Something like that. If I had died when he did, I'd have been dragged to the underworld. He laughed. Not sure what's worse, being there or stuck inside this kid's body. At least here he can tap into my strength again and I get to stretch my legs a bit. I won't let you take control, she warned. Doesn't matter, the fox rumbled. As he grows in power, the boundaries between us thin. Sooner or later we'll be one and the same. The eye narrowed in amusement. This seal room is a bit tight. I'm looking forward to roaming that inner world of yours. He'll defeat you when the time comes, she insisted. He'll master both our powers. Then you'd better make sure he's prepared. If he falters, I will take over. With a scowl, Shiryo slammed the door shut and returned to her domain. Sitting down, she watched Naruto sleep. Please don't let him win, she murmured, mourning. Naruto, a shrill voice yelled into his ear, startling him awake with a scream. He bolted upright, eyes darting in every direction. He quickly spotted a fuming Rukia standing at his bedside. Finally, she snapped. I've been trying to wake you for the last 15 minutes. She tossed his uniform at him. Get dressed and meet Renji and me for breakfast. She stormed out, pausing only to bark a warning. Don't even think about going back to sleep. Naruto groaned as he got up. Man, she's got a temper, he muttered, slipping into his uniform. Not that it surprised him. He had known her since their first day at the academy. Even though he was used to her short fuse, it still unnerved him. It reminded him far too much of a certain pink-haired teammate. Shaking his head, he finished getting dressed and made his way to their usual breakfast spot. Sure enough, Renji was already there, talking with his mouth full, while Rukia smacked him on the head in annoyance. Naruto chuckled. In the 3 years they'd known each other, the three had become close friends. Naruto and Renji competed at everything, and Rukia hit them both when they got carried away. Renji had grown taller than both him and Rukia, and even started getting tattoos where his eyebrows used to be. Naruto once caught a glimpse of more ink across his chest and wondered, where the hell is he getting those tattoos? Renji's hair had gotten longer, too. Naruto figured it would fall halfway down his back if he ever let it out of that ponytail. Rukia hadn't changed much. She'd grown a bit and let her hair grow longer, but otherwise looked the same as when they'd first met. Naruto smirked to himself. She's probably going to stay flat-chested for all eternity. He sat down beside them, grateful she'd remembered to grab him some food. So, what's the latest? Renji turned to him. You, obviously. The whole academy is buzzing about your upcoming match with Prizly, he said, mouth still half full. And just so you know, if you lose, I'm going to beat your ass, because if you look bad, I look bad. Naruto grinned. Don't worry, I'm gonna smash that guy into next week. He threw a fist into the air. Rukia smiled at his enthusiasm. Any luck unlocking your Shikai yet? She asked, then regretted it as soon as his expression fell. No, he muttered. I've been giving it everything I've got, but I still can't release it. Who needs it to beat that clown? Renji said, trying to cheer him up. You said it yourself, you're gonna knock him into next week. Naruto perked up. Yeah, maybe even into next month, he laughed. His two closest friends smiled. Making Naruto happy was never that hard. And today was a special day. Classes were cancelled so students could spar and show off their skills. Naruto nodded. Let's go, he said, and his two companions followed suit. The three of them got up and made their way toward the arena. Upon reaching the arena, they were confronted by a tall figure, Jonathan. Hey Uzumaki, he greeted, clearly having learned Naruto's name from someone else. Naruto glanced at him. Prizly, he replied coolly. The other boy grinned arrogantly. I didn't think you'd show up. I figured someone like you would know better than to challenge me, he mocked. But I guess you're not as smart as I thought. He was hoping for a reaction, but when Naruto didn't give one, Jonathan's smugness shifted into anger. No matter, he snarled. I'm still going to crush you. With that, he marched toward the center of the arena. Naruto grinned and followed him, giving a brief wave to Rukia and Renji as they made their way to the stands. Reaching the center, Jonathan turned to face Naruto. Last chance to back out, he said with a smirk. Naruto shook his head. You're just trying to avoid the fight, he said with a smile, unsheathing his weapon as Jonathan did the same. I'm going to wipe that grin off your face, Jonathan sneered before lunging at him with surprising speed. Naruto dodged the first strike and sidestepped another. For a big guy, he's fast, Naruto thought, narrowly avoiding a third blow. Naruto began to counter, landing jabs and slashes, though they were all blocked or avoided. Wait, he thought, as he blocked another hit and shoved Jonathan back. This is just like last night's training. With that, he leaped back and rushed forward, launching an upward slash that Jonathan easily dodged. In that split second, Naruto let his blade fly into the air. While Jonathan was distracted, Naruto focused his energy into his fists and feet. He closed the distance, unleashing rapid punches and kicks, hitting Jonathan with astounding speed. With a final blow, he sent Jonathan flying backward, catching his blade midair. How's that, Prizlai? Naruto grinned. Jonathan slowly stood, still grinning. That was a pretty nice attack, Uzumaki, he said. But now, playtime's over. He raised his sword. Pierce my foe, Zensume Supeiku. Naruto felt a crushing pressure and realized his opponent had unleashed his Zanpakuto. Spikes, that was what he saw first. Jonathan was covered from head to toe in jagged spikes, with two particularly large ones protruding from his palms. The smaller spikes on his body still looked formidable. Then, Jonathan vanished. Fast Shunpo, Naruto muttered, trying to track his movements, but he was backhanded across the arena. Naruto landed, sliding on his feet, and turned to see several spikes hurtling toward him. He managed to dodge some, but a few grazed him, leaving shallow cuts. He tried to move, but more spikes rained down, driving into his sides, causing excruciating pain. He collapsed, and a shadow loomed over him. Time to end this, Uzumaki. He heard Jonathan sneer before a massive spike aimed at his head. In that moment, Naruto heard someone yell his name. With his strength fading, he swung his blade in desperation. Rise, Shuriokitsune, he shouted. And then, the power surged. From the stands, Rukia and Renji watched in awe as Naruto hurled his Zanpakuto into the air and began to overpower Jonathan. But when Jonathan released his Zanpakuto, the tide turned, and Naruto was beaten mercilessly. As Jonathan raised his blade to strike Naruto down, Rukia screamed his name. Naruto, she cried, watching helplessly. It was then that she and Renji felt a surge of power. Naruto's arms and legs were covered in dark armor, tinged with a red hue. The armor on his legs resembled boots, reaching from his knees down to his feet. His arms were protected by gauntlets, which extended from his shoulders down to his claws. Rukia was baffled. How could armor like that help? Then she saw the giant spike's tip halted by Naruto's arm. His wounds had healed, and Naruto pushed Jonathan back before raising his foot high. My turn, he said before slamming it into the ground. The earth cracked and crumbled toward Jonathan, throwing him off balance. Naruto dropped low, positioning his arms parallel to the ground, palms facing outward with his clawed fingers turned inward. Let's see if this works again, he murmured, rushing forward. With a flurry of strikes, he pummeled Jonathan with incredible speed and strength. Naruto barrage, he yelled as he struck relentlessly. Finally, with a powerful punch, Jonathan was hurled into the arena wall, where he stayed slumped unconscious. Naruto stood still, waiting until his opponent fell completely still before moving. The arena was silent for a moment before the crowd erupted into cheers. Naruto smiled and waved, before tipping backward, only to be caught by two sets of hands. Man, isn't that armor heavy? Renji asked, and Naruto mumbled that it wasn't, feeling the armor vanish as it returned to its katana form. Much better, Renji said as he picked up Naruto. Rukia, grab his Zanpakuto. That was the last thing Naruto heard before he slipped into unconsciousness. He awoke in the infirmary, gazing up at the ceiling before noticing Rukia seated beside him. Hey, he said with a grin. She returned the smile. Hey, I won right? He asked and Rukia nodded. Awesome, he cheered, throwing his fist up triumphantly. And I unlocked my Shikai, he added, his smile widening. Rukia's smile deepened. That's great, she said, her voice gentle. But you should rest and let your injuries heal. She leaned down and kissed his forehead, causing him to flush red before she left. Well, Naruto murmured, closing his eyes as he leaned back. This has been a fantastic day. Graduations and divisions, 13 captains sat in a circular formation, deciding which new graduates would fit into their respective divisions. Rukia was assigned to the 13th division due to her exceptional skill in both Kaido and Zanjutsu. The captain of this division was Yukitake Jashiro, a powerful yet physically frail leader, held back by his tuberculosis. Renji, on the other hand, was assigned to the 5th division, but depending on his performance, he could be reassigned, possibly to the 11th or 6th divisions. Now, it was time to discuss Naruto Uzumaki. I think he'd be a great fit for the 11th division, Kenpachi Zaraki boomed, a grin spreading across his scarred face. His wild hair seemed to almost move in rhythm with his spiritual energy. He's strong and would make for an excellent challenge in battle, he said, eager for a fight. The others exchanged glances, none of them eager to see Naruto placed in Kenpachi's division. Naruto didn't align with the 6th, 4th, or 5th divisions. As the captains debated where he should go, one person remained silent. Soi Fong, Captain Yamamoto's voice was steady. What are your thoughts? Soi Fong glanced up, her expression unreadable. Naruto's a quick learner and skilled in both Ho-Ho and Zanjutsu, she replied in her usual flat tone. He's even been able to sneak past instructors. His stealth is remarkable. Yamamoto nodded thoughtfully. So, do you think he belongs in your division? He asked, his gaze focused on her. With a slight nod, Soi Fong agreed. Yes, Yamamoto smiled. Then it's decided. Naruto Uzumaki will join the 2nd division. Kenpachi looked disappointed, but the meeting continued with the discussion of other students. Naruto's dorm a graduation celebration? Naruto asked, sitting on his bed and looking at Rukia and Renji. Yeah, man, Renji said with a wide grin. I've already got a date, and she's absolutely stunning. Naruto laughed as Renji started bragging about his date, only for Rukia to smack him upside the head. Apparently, Renji had been more interested in his dates, assets than her personality. Rukia shook her head. Renji, don't you have to go grab our clothes from the laundry room? She asked with a smile. Renji, now flustered, quickly ran out, promising to share more of his date stories later. Rukia turned to Naruto, her expression serious. She seemed to be thinking through something. Naruto, she began, her voice softer than usual. Yeah, he asked, watching her. She fidgeted nervously, avoiding his gaze. Well, her face turned red. I don't have a date for tonight's party and I was wondering if you'd go with me. She hurriedly added, just as friends, of course, glancing away, waiting for his answer. Naruto blinked, surprised. In his eyes, Rukia was one of the prettiest girls he knew. And just a few years ago, she'd become a noble of the Kuchiki family. It made no sense to him that no one had asked her out. Of course, Rukia, he said with a smile. I'd be honored. Her face lit up, and she hugged him tightly. Thank you, Naruto, she exclaimed. I've got to go pick out a dress, she added, before giving him a quick peck on the cheek and running out. Naruto smiled, happy to see her so cheerful. Shortly after, Renji returned, holding 2 tuxedos. Naruto stared at him. Why are we wearing tuxedos? He asked. We've got to look good for our dates, Renji said, grinning. Once you get a date, that is. He eyed Naruto with a teasing look. No way you didn't. Yeah, Naruto said with a smug grin. I got a date. But I was only gone for 10-15 minutes. Renji was in disbelief. How could you have managed that so fast? Naruto just grinned. You'll see who it is at the party, Renji groaned. Fine, he said, but let me finish telling you about that babe I've got. He went off on a tangent about his date. So, what's her name? Naruto interrupted. She's the girl from Kaido class, remember? Renji replied, earning a confused look from Naruto. The one who sits 5 rows behind you. Now it clicked. Renji was talking about Leona Hearts, a beautiful girl with long, raven-black hair and stunning emerald eyes. She was certainly pretty, but it was still a surprise that she was Renji's date. No one except Naruto seemed to notice these details. Everyone else was focused on the girl's noticeable features. Naruto nodded. Her name's Leona Hearts, he said. Yep, that's her. His red-headed companion grinned. How do you remember everyone's name? I pay attention, Naruto replied. Instead of focusing on things that don't matter, Renji scoffed. Anyway, I don't think I'll be heading back to the dorm, he said with a grin. So feel free to use it for your date. This made the blonde, Shinigami in training blush. He wouldn't be saying that if he knew who Naruto's date was, Naruto thought. Rukia was pretty and kind when she wanted to be. The only reason most guys didn't bother her was because she had a modest chest. But they were just going as friends, so it wasn't like anything was going to happen. He laid back, listening to Renji ramble about his hopes for the evening, with Rukia. Silk, Hinamori Momo asked, looking at Rukia. Why silk for the dress? Rukia blushed. I have a date tonight, and I want to look good for him, she explained, receiving a smile from Momo. So who's the lucky guy? Momo asked as she flipped through the dresses. Well, it's, Rukia blushed even more. Naruto, she said. Momo smiled knowingly. That handsome guy, she asked. Rukia nodded. So, can you help me get the dress, she asked. Momo nodded enthusiastically. Don't worry, you'll have it before the party. With Naruto. Naruto was getting his tux ready. It looked normal enough, except it had a subtle red tint. He left the top buttons undone to avoid looking too formal. He had wanted to let his hair down, but it wouldn't cooperate, so instead, it was spiked in every direction. He heard a knock at the door and went to answer it. When he opened it, his breath caught. Rukia stood there, wearing a light blue dress with white trim along the edges. Her eyes were sparkling, with a hint of mascara bringing them out. Hey Naruto, she said softly. Naruto noticed the faint pink lipstick on her lips. Hey, he stammered. Rukia blushed. Don't look at me like that, she said. Naruto quickly turned his head, his own cheeks red. Sorry, he mumbled. Are you ready? She asked, and he nodded. Then let's go, she said with a smile, taking his arm as they walked to the party. The party was already in full swing when they arrived. It was being held in one of the academy's largest rooms, the former training hall. Wow, Naruto said, taking in the decorations and the crowd. You wouldn't even guess this used to be a training room. Rukia agreed with a nod. They found a table in the corner of the room. I'll get us something to drink, Naruto offered. All right, Rukia smiled. Hurry back. She watched as he walked off. Wow, she heard a voice say behind her. He looks amazing tonight. Rukia turned around to see Momo. Hey, she smiled. Yeah, Naruto looks great. So, are you planning on taking him back to your dorm later? Momo wiggled her eyebrows. Rukia blushed. Well, maybe, she stammered, then sniffed the air. Momo, have you been drinking? She asked. Just a little, Momo grinned. Meanwhile, Naruto was picking up drinks. Most of them had a distinct scent of alcohol, but he noticed some bottles of water on the side. Clearly, someone had planned ahead. He suspected the original drinks hadn't been alcoholic. Hey man, Renji stumbled over to him. Why are you getting those? The fun drinks are over there, he said, slurring slightly. No thanks, Renji, Naruto shook his head. Not really a drinker, you on the other hand. Where's your date? Renji grinned. She's at the door, he leaned in close, his breath heavy with alcohol. We're heading back to her dorm later. I was just getting a refill. He filled his cup and staggered off. Naruto sighed, then walked back to Rukia. He thought he saw someone else approaching, but when he looked again, there was no one there. Here you go, he said, handing her a bottle. All the other drinks have alcohol, she asked, raising an eyebrow. Some people love to mix it up, Naruto said, lifting his bottle in a small toast. She raised hers and they both took a sip. After a moment, Naruto set his bottle down and extended his hand to her. Want to dance? Rukia smiled, setting her drink down. You know this is a slow song, right? She teased, taking his hand. Yeah, I know, he replied as he led her onto the dance floor. He placed his hands on her waist, and she rested hers on his shoulders. They moved slowly to the music. You're a good dancer, she said, looking into his eyes. Thanks, you are too, he smiled back. Then, feeling a bit bold, she leaned up and kissed him softly. Naruto, caught by surprise, quickly returned the kiss. After a few seconds, it broke the silence. That was enjoyable, she said, moving closer to him to rest her head on his chest. Naruto gently rested his chin on top of her head. It was, he whispered softly. They began to sway gently to the music. You look stunning tonight, Rukia, he complimented. Thank you, she smiled. You're looking quite handsome yourself. Naruto smiled back, his gaze softening. Rukia lifted her head slightly to whisper in his ear, I want to spend the night with you, Naruto. We're spending the night right now, he whispered back, a playful tone in his voice. Rukia shook her head, pulling away slightly. Not here, she whispered with a mischievous smile. I mean in our dorm, she reached out, taking his hand to lead him. And I mean now. Naruto blinked in surprise but nodded, allowing her to guide him away from the party. The next day, the door to the dorm opened quietly and Renji walked in, holding a piece of paper. Hey Naruto, he said casually. Guess what division you're in? He looked toward Naruto's bed, only to freeze as he saw two figures lying there. Well, he grinned as he moved closer. Naruto was asleep with a raven-haired girl nestled on his chest. I wonder who she is, Renji whispered, unable to see her face clearly. The girl shifted slightly in her sleep, turning her head, revealing her identity. Renji's eyes widened in realization. He started before the two woke up. their eyes locking onto him. You're with Rukia. Naruto grinned as he made his way toward the second division building. I wonder if being a captain is anything like being Hawkeye, he mused aloud. Either way, it's something worth aiming for. As he entered, several people gave him odd looks. He was momentarily surprised. They look like ninjas, he thought, a small smile forming on his lips. Kind of like Anbu, but without the masks. He noticed that they wore cloth covering their foreheads and mouths instead of traditional masks. Despite their appearance, none of them wore headbands. Well, if they're anything like the ninjas I knew, this might be interesting. As the last thought crossed his mind, all of the people in the room vanished. He stepped forward, immediately under attack from all sides. He spun, blocking strikes and knocking back his attackers with his feet and legs. More masked figures replaced the fallen, but Naruto was ready. He flashed a fox-like grin and moved fluidly through their ranks, his palms striking their midsections with a burst of Ryatsu, a little technique he'd adapted from the Hyuga clan. While he hadn't inherited their bloodline, his chakra training allowed him to channel bursts of energy with precision. As expected, more Shinigami filled their places. Naruto decided to show them just how a true ninja fights. Without a sound, he vanished, not using Shunpo but his natural speed. One by one, he appeared behind them, knocking them out before they had a chance to react. Surprise flashed in their eyes as they crumpled to the floor. Standing triumphantly among the unconscious Shinigami, he suddenly felt a cold presence behind him. This one's strong, he thought, turning slowly. A blade stopped just short of his nose. You're impressive, Soifang said calmly. Welcome to the second division. She turned and walked toward her office. Come, she ordered. Naruto looked back at the downed Shinigami before following her inside. Yes, ma'am. Once inside, she handed him a file. I already have a mission for you. Karakura Town, he asked, glancing at the contents. Why there? There's been unusually high hollow activity in the area, she explained. And one of our Shinigami has gone missing there. Naruto looked up sharply. Who? He asked. He knew Rukia had been assigned to a mission there a few weeks ago, and given her strength, she should have returned by now. Rukia Kuchiki, Soifang replied, making Naruto frown. Your task is to investigate the hollow surge and find Rukia. Naruto nodded. Understood, ma'am. He left her office, and as he stepped out of the building, he noticed that the unconscious Shinigami had mysteriously disappeared. His mission now took him to the human world. Karakura Town. Naruto stretched, flexing every muscle in his body. I feel like I'm wearing lead, he muttered. That's normal, Kisuke Urahara replied from a few feet away. You've never used a gigi before. He examined Naruto. Looks like it fits you well. Any issues? Naruto shook his head, doing a few stretches. Once I adjust to the gravity, I should move just like I did when I was alive. And how exactly did you move back then? Kisuke asked, intrigued. Well, Naruto grinned, I could jump onto the roof of that building easily. I was fast too. Ninjas need speed to chase enemies. So you were a ninja? Kisuke raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued by this kid's background. Yeah, Naruto's expression darkened for a moment before brightening again. It was fun, but now I'm a Shinigami. The man in the straw hat gave a nod. I guess you're curious about where you'll be staying and other details like that. Naruto, the blonde with whisker-like marks on his face, grinned and nodded. Well, you're going to be staying here, the man said, handing Naruto a piece of paper. And starting tomorrow, you'll be going to Karakura High School. Naruto blinked, a little confused. Wait, you're telling me I have to go back to school? He groaned at the man's nod. Great, just what I needed. He sighed heavily, standing up. All right, I guess I'll see you around. As he walked out, he muttered under his breath, an apartment again. Later, as Naruto reached his new door, the door across the hallway opened, revealing a girl with short, raven-colored hair. She looked like someone who might be a bit of a tomboy. Naruto smiled and greeted her. Hey there, I'm new around here. She gave him a curious look. Oh hey, I'm Tatsuki Arasawa. Who are you? Naruto Uzumaki, he replied with a grin, offering his hand. Nice to meet you. You're my new neighbor, she asked. I was pretty sure that guy with the straw hat was buying this place for himself. Actually, he bought it for me. He's my guardian, Naruto explained, still smiling. Are you going to the same school? Tatsuki asked. He nodded. Yeah, that's the plan. Well, you might actually have something in common with someone from school, she mused more to herself than to him. Who? Naruto asked, curious. Oh, sorry, I was just thinking out loud. There's this guy named Ichigo Kurosaki at school. He's got hair like yours, she pointed to his head, though it's a little more orange than blonde. Naruto touched his spiked, sun-kissed hair. Really? He said. Where I come from, hair like this is totally normal. I've seen all kinds, blonde, blue, black, pink, gray. He counted on his fingers. Long, short bowl cuts, even some that defy gravity. Tatsuki laughed softly at that last bit. Sounds like some pretty strange styles. Naruto nodded and was about to say more when his wristwatch beeped loudly. Crap, he said, noticing the time. I have to go, talk later. With that, he dashed off instead of entering his apartment. What a weird guy, Tatsuki muttered quietly as she walked the other way. I wonder what he's really like. Outside, Naruto popped a white pill into his mouth. There was a flash, and suddenly his soul separated from his body. Take care of things for me, he said to his physical form, which replied, of course. Checking his watch, he noted the direction of the hollow's location. Looks like it's this way, he said, running off toward it. Halfway there, the signal disappeared. What the hell, he muttered. I need to figure out why it vanished, he said. No hollow just disappears, unless it was taken care of. He stopped and felt a faint trace of another Shinigami's spiritual energy. Looks like this other Shinigami dealt with the hollow quickly, but I don't recognize this Ryatsu. With that, he continued on, unaware of Tatsuki and another person heading in the opposite direction, the raven-haired girl muttering about a strange fighter with orange hair. When he finally returned to his apartment, he noticed Tatsuki wasn't around. For some reason, it made him feel a little down. Shaking off the feeling, he walked into his apartment. Living alone again, he sighed and laughed softly. Oh well, he said as he entered his bedroom and noticed his body lying on the bed. He smirked, spun around, and jumped onto the bed, landing back into his physical form. Opening his eyes, he quickly spat out the pill. That was weird, he muttered, feeling strange, like the sensation of falling from a building in a dream. Standing up, he shrugged off his shirt and headed for the bathroom. I could really use a shower. After his shower and dressing in a black shirt and sweatpants, Naruto made himself some instant ramen. Never loses its flavor, he said as he slurped down the noodles. Once finished, he prepared to go to bed. Just before sleep overtook him, he had a strange feeling that something bad was coming the next day. The next morning, he woke up disoriented, realizing he was about to be late for school. A blonde blur, he zipped around the apartment, getting dressed and gathering his things simultaneously. Meanwhile, Tatsuki was on her way to school when she heard something behind her. Turning, she saw a cloud of dust and a familiar blonde head. Naruto could be heard shouting, "Crap, crap, crap," she laughed. "Hey Naruto," she called. Naruto skidded to a stop and turned back to her. "Hey," he said. "Aren't you tired?" she asked. "Nope," he answered, shaking his head. "Why should I be?" she grinned. "You're amazing. You were running at an insane speed and you're not even winded." "Not everyone can do that, not even me, and I practice karate." Naruto nodded. "I figured you did some kind of workout, you've got an amazing build." She blushed at the compliment. "Thanks," she replied. "Do you work out?" she asked, glancing at the black shirt under his unzipped jacket, which was a mix of black and orange. He nodded. "I like to keep in shape," he said. She nodded in understanding, thinking, I can see that. "You know, I thought I was running late for school," he said. "I must have missed my clock." "No, you're fine," she answered nonchalantly. "I don't mind being late, so I walk to school like this all the time." Naruto grinned, a smile mixed with a grimace. "Great, hey, don't be so hard on yourself," she patted his shoulder. "It's not unusual to be late on the first day of school." "Right," he said, his smile returning. "Let's get going." He quickened his pace. She shook her head as they entered the school. "You should head to the office to get your room number and any other details." He nodded. "I'll see you later," he said, heading towards the office. Tatsuki gave him a small smile before heading off to class. About 10 minutes later, Naruto had received his class information and was walking toward his classroom. I wonder who I'll meet here, he thought. He walked into the room and went straight to the teacher without noticing the other students. He handed him a note explaining his name and why he was late. "Ah," the teacher said. "Class, this is our new student. Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto turned to face the class and froze. Sitting a few feet ahead of him was none other than Rukia Kuchiki. "Nice to meet you all," he said, as he walked to an empty seat at the back of the room. He could tell Rukia was watching him with wide, surprised eyes. He glanced to her left and saw a boy with bright orange hair. That must be Ichigo, he thought. Tatsuki wasn't kidding, his hair is more orange than blonde. To the right of Rukia, he noticed a large guy with short, messy dark hair and a deep complexion. Despite his size, Naruto could sense a gentler nature than what his appearance suggested. Further to the right, he noticed an uptight-looking boy with rectangular glasses. He must have been taught to respect others from a young age, Naruto mused. While scanning the room, he saw Tatsuki with a girl who had notably large eyes. The girl had orange hair and a carefree expression, But Naruto could tell there was more to her. She was thoughtful, and possibly, very smart if she chose to show it. Naruto was surprised at how easy it was to read the people in the room. It felt like none of them had bothered to hide their thoughts, except for Rukia and himself. The only other people who seemed good at it were the dark-skinned guy, Ichigo, and maybe Tatsuki. His gaze went back to Ichigo, and he had to stifle a laugh. The guy's spiritual energy was almost impossible to miss. It practically screamed out to anyone paying attention. Underneath his amusement, Naruto was genuinely surprised. This guy's spiritual power is massive, he thought. He hasn't trained as a Shinigami at all, yet his power rivals someone close to vice-captain level. Naruto, so absorbed in his observations, didn't notice the bell ring. Nor did he realize that the other students were getting up to go to lunch, until Tatsuki lightly shook him. "Wow, you were deep in thought," she said as he finally looked at her. "Well, you can think later. I want you to meet everyone." She led him over to the group that was gathered by the door. "This," she introduced him, "is Naruto, who lives next to me." "It's great to meet Tatsuki's friends," Naruto said, extending his hand. The first to shake his hand was the girl sitting next to Tatsuki. "Hi, I'm Orihime now," she said cheerfully. The next was the large dark-skinned guy. "Name's Yasutora Sato," he said with a deep voice. "Just call me Chad." Naruto nodded and then turned to Ichigo. "And you?" "Ichigo Kurosaki," Ichigo said, not bothering to take his hand. "Someone's in a bad mood," Naruto thought, making a subtle face. Rukia caught this and giggled. "Hey Rukia," he called, turning to her. Everyone turned to look at Rukia. "You know him?" Ichigo asked, a bit surprised. "Yes," Rukia answered. "We're from the same place," Naruto added. "Rukia got here before I did." Rukia nodded in agreement. At that moment, both Naruto's and Rukia's watches beeped. "Got to go, guys," Naruto said, waving as he ran off. Once he was a little further away, he popped in his pill. Ichigo and Rukia also said their goodbyes, with Ichigo using Kan. Naruto, now knowing what to look for, quickly caught up to the two. Ichigo glanced at him and then turned to Rukia. "He's a Shinigami too?" he asked. "Yes," Naruto answered. "Is that a problem?" Ichigo shook his head and continued walking. Rukia looked at Naruto, her eyes narrowing slightly. "So, what brings you here now?" she asked. Naruto grinned sheepishly. "I procrastinated on my paperwork for my division," he admitted, rubbing the back of his head. Rukia rolled her eyes but smiled. "That figures, it's so typical of you." They came to a stop, and Naruto glanced around. "Ichigo, take that path," Rukia directed, pointing down one street. "Naruto and I will head this way," she pointed in the opposite direction. Ichigo nodded and sprinted off. Naruto turned to Rukia. "We need to catch up. You've been gone for nearly a month." Together, they walked down the street. Meanwhile, Ichigo met someone new. "I'm Uryu Ishida," the boy introduced himself. "A Quincy," Naruto tensed. "Do you sense that?" he asked, and saw Rukia nod in agreement. Suddenly, hollows appeared in large numbers, materializing from the shadows. Naruto was immediately on guard. "Why don't you leave that body?" he asked, blocking one hollow's claws with ease. "I can't," Rukia replied, struggling to defend herself. "I'm too weak right now, let's talk later." She fired energy blasts at the hollows. Naruto nodded, continuing his defense. "Why are there so many? This isn't natural," he thought. Rukia was surrounded by hollows, and Naruto did everything he could to protect her. Then suddenly, everything went still, save for the dripping of water. Naruto blinked and looked around. "Where am I?" he muttered. A deep voice echoed from the door to his right. "Use my power kit." "Fox?" Naruto asked, eyes widening in recognition. "Who else?" came the reply, and the door swung open to reveal the massive red slitted eye of the Kyuubi. "Why should I use your power?" Naruto asked. "This feels like when I was alive." The Kyuubi chuckled darkly. "If you don't, your companion will die. I'll give you just enough of my power to fight, nothing more. You won't lose control." Naruto hesitated, thinking it over. "I won't lose control?" he asked. The Kyuubi's eye seemed to narrow, a silent affirmation. "No, you won't," Naruto sighed. "All right," he said, steeling himself. "Let's do this." The red energy surged toward him. As it enveloped him, Naruto wondered how this would affect him, different from the way it had when he was alive. He felt it, the power surging through him, as his eyes glowed an eerie red with slit pupils. "Rise, Shiryo Kitsune," he whispered, releasing his Zanpakuto. In that instant, he unleashed his fury on the hollows. His body blurred as he moved with lightning speed, claws flashing as they tore through hollow masks. He cut through two hollow bodies with one swift motion, savoring the bloodlust. He ran his tongue over his elongated canines, red eyes surveying the carnage as more hollows charged at him. His claws carved through them effortlessly, and soon the battlefield was empty of enemies. His gaze softened as he turned to Rukia, his eyes returning to their usual bright blue. He approached her. "What was that?" she asked, still shaken. "Something from my past," he replied, looking away. "Let's find Ichigo." Rukia nodded and followed him. When they reached Ichigo and Ishida, they found themselves facing a Menno's Grand. "It's a Zero," Rukia shouted, seeing the glowing ball forming in the air. "Get back," Naruto shouted, but the Zero struck before they could react. Naruto watched in disbelief as Ichigo deflected the attack with his large Zanpakuto, redirecting the Zero back at the Menno's Grand. It was struck deep, and the hollow retreated into the rift it had opened. Naruto looked at the fallen Ichigo. "This guy might have some potential," he murmured to himself. Later, once everyone was safe, Naruto walked home with Tatsuki. "Well, today was interesting," she said. Naruto nodded, a tired smile on his face. "I feel like I could sleep for a week," he chuckled. Tatsuki gave a small laugh. "See you tomorrow," she said before walking off. Naruto entered his apartment and collapsed onto his bed. "What is this?" he muttered, feeling something cool and hard in his shirt. He pulled it out, his eyes widening. It was a fox-shaped hollow mask, with black tips on the ears and red rings around its eyes. Its sharp teeth seemed to be grinning at him. Naruto groaned, placing the mask on his dresser. "What's going on?" he wondered, staring at it as he laid back down. A sinister laugh echoed in his mind as he fell asleep. It was quiet, too quiet. His mind felt foggy and something seemed missing. He kept seeing flashes, but they were quickly smothered by an overwhelming hunger. Not a typical hunger, something deeper. He tried to focus, but his vision was blurry, and he couldn't remember what was wrong. He looked down, seeing a large white paw pressed against a hole in his chest. It felt strange, but he couldn't remember why. Slowly, he stood, his body shaky and unsteady. He stumbled, but a large white tail with a black tip steadied him, preventing him from falling. Glancing over his shoulder, his spiked back resembling a mass of white fur running down his body, he took note of the strange sensation. His entire form was covered in it. His paws were tipped with large black claws, and as he surveyed his surroundings, he noticed something peculiar, 3 more tails that matched the first. Slowly, he began walking forward, observing the barren expanse that stretched out before him. The land was a vast, white desert. A glimmer caught his attention, and he bent down to investigate. It was a polished stone, smooth and reflective, catching the light just right. His face was strange. It was a fox-like mask, white with black rings around the eyes and black-tipped ears that pointed backward. The grin on the mask was sinister, hinting at torment. He recoiled, stepping back from the reflection. Yet through the eye slits of the mask, something softer was visible. Bright blue eyes, though slitted, stared back at him. A sharp sting in his chest reminded him of a deep void. The hunger gnawed at him, and instinctively, the mask's mouth opened in sync with his own, releasing a low growl. Lowering his face to the ground, he inhaled deeply, savoring the energy of the creature nearby. It was a small, worm-like creature. He consumed it without hesitation, feeling only a fleeting trace of remorse. The hunger in his chest faded, but it didn't disappear entirely. As the pain receded, his mind cleared, and one word surfaced from the depths of his memory. Naruto. His voice echoed strangely, as if coming from another realm. The hunger intensified once again, burning in his chest, and with a groan, he clutched his heart. Desperately, he scanned the wasteland for more sustenance, driven by the need to feed and to remember. 3 years later, with a powerful rip, the hollow's arm was severed, and with a satisfying rumble in his chest, Naruto consumed it whole. He continued to devour the creature until nothing remained. Over time, he had learned much about his surroundings, about his nature from other hollows, typically those who had tried to devour him, only to fail miserably. Every time he consumed a hollow, he gained fragments of their memories, and each time his strength surged. Yet with this increase in power came an uncomfortable battle for his own mind, as the memories of those he consumed sought to overwhelm his consciousness. But he resisted, crushing them under the weight of his power, and soon, the voices fell silent. Around this time, he encountered the Ajuchas, Grimmjow, and his crew. Grimmjow was blunt, even rude, but his unyielding determination and loyalty appealed to Naruto. Though they often clashed and tested each other's strength, their partnership proved formidable, enabling them to defeat even the mightiest of foes. But their constant battles also left their bodies bruised, and Naruto had nearly lost a tail during one of their skirmishes. It was during one of these clashes that Naruto lost a significant portion of his mask, unlocking a rush of painful memories of a village and a pink-haired girl. The feeling of those memories was too painful, too raw, and he could not bear the thought of reliving them. With that, he decided to part ways with Grimjow's group, venturing off alone once more. Although his growth slowed without the presence of his fellow Hollows, Naruto's strength continued to grow at a steady pace until, one day, he stumbled upon a mysterious building amidst the desert. It resembled a castle, something unlike anything he had ever seen in Mundo. Naruto moved quietly, his ears attentive to the slightest sound, and his tails scanning the air for any sign of disturbance. As he crossed what could only be described as a boundary, a heavy pressure settled on him, making it difficult to even move his tails. Suddenly, he sensed a shift in the air behind him. With difficulty, he flipped forward and landed in a defensive stance, facing the source of the disturbance, a beautiful woman with green hair, a goat's skull perched upon her head. She was the one emanating that overwhelming power. The woman appeared puzzled at how quickly he had evaded her. Without warning, she blurred forward, closing the distance in an instant. His eyes flared crimson as he vanished, spinning away just in time for her fist to smash into the ground, causing cracks to form. She reappeared before him, even faster than before. Her movements were a blur, but his tails slammed into the ground, pulling him backward just as her fist neared his mask. He knew that if her blow connected, it would split both his mask and his skull in two. Naruto's claws scraped her skin, but it felt like striking steel. She retaliated, her fist landing solidly in his chest, sending him flying backward with a gasp. His knees buckled as he hit the ground with an intensity that left him breathless. The force of her blow was like nothing he had ever felt before. Before he could recover, she rushed forward, drawing a sword. He could feel her intent to end him swiftly. Then, the voice within him stirred. "Don't give up, Naruto, destroy her." The voice echoed in his mind as a surge of energy flooded his body. His eyes burned crimson as his tails flicked forward, and with the power coursing through him, he unleashed a blast from his mouth, charging a zero at an incredible speed. The woman was caught off guard, actually struck and sent flying backward. She quickly regained her footing, seemingly unhurt, and noticed that this hollow was preparing to unleash another attack. She steeled herself to reflect it back using her own zero. Naruto's zero began expanding rapidly, only to shrink before he swallowed it whole. His body expanded in an instant, and he unleashed a supercharged zero. Her eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets as she watched. Swiftly, she altered her approach and disappeared, sensing that this hollow wasn't relying solely on his Ryatsu in the battle. Something deeper was at play within him. Just then, a figure appeared behind the hollow. "Tozen," she whispered under her breath as the man drew his blade, effortlessly halting the hollow's attack. He turned his gaze toward her. He must remain alive. He could be of use, he said coldly, then vanished without a trace. She shook her head, muttering, "Great, with my luck, I'll end up training him." She effortlessly lifted the hollow and disappeared into the distance. Several years later, around the time Shinigami Naruto left the academy, Naruto sighed as he completed his transformation. After much effort, he had finally proven himself worthy in the eyes of Sasuke Asian, the self-proclaimed leader of the Arrancar. He had earned the right to join their ranks. Flexing his fingers, he felt the weight of his memories flood back. Everything came rushing back to him, the reason he had become a hollow, and the existence of the other Naruto. He now understood the truth behind their separation. Flashback immediately following their battle, one Naruto was sent to the Soul Society, while another, hidden from the Shinigami, sat alone against a tree. He waited until the area was clear of any threats. This hidden Naruto now grasped why they had split. The Kyubai's power, combined with the fourth Hokage sealing technique, had evenly divided its strength between the two. Each Naruto had inherited 4 tails, with the final one preserved for their eventual reunification, if that were ever to happen. Once certain he was no longer at risk, the hidden Naruto observed his own body, his face etched with a deep frown. The cause of all his pain was clear: the villagers, his parents, and everyone else who had treated him as an outcast. They had all played their part in his torment. No one had helped him, and their neglect had hindered his growth. Grabbing the chain connected to his chest, Naruto let out a roar of frustration. He blamed Sakura for her weakness, her inability to grow, and for relying on others, especially Sasuke. His anger grew, feeding the chains that bound him. He could see them eating away at themselves, rapidly deteriorating under the pressure. Then there was Sasuke, his brooding, pathetic rival. The boy had never been worthy of the admiration he received. He should have been eradicated with the rest of his cursed clan. Naruto was disgusted with himself for ever feeling inferior to him. With a violent yank, he tore the chain from his chest, letting out a pained yell as his form shifted, becoming that of a hollow, the very appearance he would later take on in Hukomundo. The hollow-formed Naruto knew exactly what he desired: to devour one's soul. Swiftly, he pursued the familiar signature of the curse seal, sensing its dark mixture of poison and chakra. He hunted for days, eventually finding the Uchiha asleep. "Wake up, team!" Naruto growled into Sasuke's ear. When the Uchiha didn't respond, Naruto brought down his claws and ripped the soul from his body. He chuckled darkly as Sasuke looked up in confusion. "Good to see that smug expression wiped off your face," Naruto sneered. "You killed me, now it's my turn." "Naruto?" Sasuke's voice was filled with disbelief, staring at the monstrous fox before him. "That's right, say goodbye to those pretty eyes," Naruto said, then devoured Sasuke's soul with an unsettling ease. He laughed at the thought that Sasuke had been so weak, so far below him now. "Not so tough anymore, huh?" he taunted, before stepping over the lifeless body and opening his mask's smiling mouth. With a satisfied belch, he finished consuming Sasuke's physical form. He felt the surge of power that followed, his body absorbing the curse seal effortlessly, destroying it in the process. That's when he sensed the Shinigami approaching. Using a great deal of his remaining energy, Naruto tore open a portal into Hukomundo. As he jumped through, everything went dark. End of flashback now, Naruto understood why he had become a hollow. He had forgiven everyone, even Sasuke, but now there was a new figure to hate: Sasuke Asian. This man embodied everything Naruto despised, everything he and the other Naruto had come to loathe. Naruto now had a new goal: to reunite with the other Naruto and bring Asian to his end. The idea of splitting Asian's skull open and tearing out his heart was a sweet thought. With his new role as Nelil II Odelschwank's latest Fraxian, Naruto walked with determination, a dark grin forming on his face. He knew how powerful Nell was. She had nearly defeated him, and he didn't believe he could best her again. But that didn't matter. His focus was on Asian's death and his reunion with the other Naruto. Sweat beaded on his Shinigami form, rolling upward towards his face, before trailing down his hair and dripping to the floor. It still amazed him that he could sweat despite being a spirit. What made his training so unique was that, while he was physically in his apartment, he was also mentally training against Shiryo Kitsune. It wasn't as straightforward as it seemed. At the moment, he was pressing his finger against the tip of his blade, channeling his spiritual energy only into that single point. It was all he could do to keep from collapsing onto his sword, as his mind was being relentlessly attacked by the weapon itself. "Come on, Naruto," Shiryo teased, landing another light cut across his legs. "You're moving so slow." She effortlessly dodged his clumsy swing. The blonde Shinigami growled in frustration. "Who could move like this with their mind fractured? I need to make sure my body doesn't fall and impale itself on the blade while trying to fight you. I'm seeing two things at once." He glared at her, though only his left eye could perceive the mindscape. "And sometimes, all I see is either my room or this place," he frowned. "I'm sure you know when I'm looking at my room." Shiryo merely shrugged. "Maybe I do, maybe I don't," she replied casually. This was all part of the training designed to push him to be aware of his surroundings while simultaneously staying attuned to something entirely different. On top of that, it was the beginning of his Bankai training, though so far, he hadn't quite grasped it. Naruto cursed when he almost lost his balance and fell on his own blade again. He glanced up, seeing both Shiryo and his room through his fragmented vision. For a brief moment, everything clicked. He could perceive Shiryo in his apartment, even as the sensation of rose petals surrounded them. A strange energy began to stir within him. Then a loud rumbling disrupted his concentration. He lost his footing and tumbled, crashing back into the real world, a large cut opening up on his palm. Sighing, he began healing the wound with his keikatsu. The 4th Division's expertise was useful, but this Kaido technique worked wonders when no one else was around. A light knock at his door made him pause. He looked up, curious. "Wonder who that is," he murmured, effortlessly slipping back into his body, which had been lying on the bed since his training began. After throwing on a pair of pants, he walked to the door, surprised to find Tatsuki standing there. "Hey," he greeted, smiling. "Sorry to bother you," she said, though her tone didn't sound particularly apologetic. "I heard a loud thud." "Oh," he grinned sheepishly, trying to look embarrassed. "That was me, I fell off the bed." He chuckled awkwardly. She laughed. "That's surprising, you seem like the type who'd be well-balanced." Still smiling, she added, "You should get dressed. School starts soon." "School?" Naruto exclaimed, suddenly panicked. He scrambled around his disorganized apartment looking for his things. Why was there school? Just the other day, he had fought a bunch of hollows. His mind raced as he quickly changed into his uniform. Didn't they know he was entitled to some rest after such intense battles? The Ninja Academy had been different. At least you could leave once you turned 12 and spend your time mostly training and fighting. Finally dressed, he hurried over to Tatsuki. He noticed that her cheeks were slightly flushed, and it took him a moment to realize why. He hadn't closed the door, and he had changed into his boxers right in front of her. Ah, we should go now, he said softly, now genuinely embarrassed. Why yeah, Tatsuki stammered, walking ahead of him. Despite his own discomfort, he couldn't help but notice her as she walked. For a smaller girl, she had a pretty well-built figure, with toned, strong legs. An image of those legs wrapped around his waist popped into his mind before he quickly shook it away. Then, another thought surfaced, this one involving Rukia. He mentally compared the two. Rukia was small, and Tatsuki, though only slightly taller, had a more curvaceous figure. In terms of chest size, Tatsuki was around a B-cup, whereas Rukia was flatter. He didn't mind Rukia's smaller frame, but there was no denying he liked larger breasts. He was just that kind of guy. Fortunately, his thoughts didn't stay on that for long. Tatsuki noticed his wandering gaze, but chose to ignore it. She actually found it a little flattering, though she couldn't quite understand why so few guys were attracted to her. Oriheim had once said it was because she came across as too intense, but Tatsuki didn't want to seem weak like Oriheim, who often got taken advantage of. She had to remain strong for herself and for her friends. A stray thought crept into her mind, one she rarely entertained. What if Naruto actually wanted to be with me? Her face heated up, and she quickly looked away from the blonde. She tried to push the thought from her mind, but all she could think of was Naruto in his boxers. Thank God, she thought, relieved to see the school in the distance. She waved half-heartedly before jogging off to meet her orange-haired friend. Naruto blinked and shrugged, deciding to track down Ichigo. He had to find out how Ichigo managed to hold back a Zero at his level. The guy hadn't even mastered his Shikai yet. Oddly enough, he couldn't find either him or Rukia. It was strange. After searching around, he found that their friends hadn't seen them either. Naruto wondered if Urahara knew where they were. He'd have to ask him after school. It was best to keep up appearances, just in case he needed to stay longer than usual. Throughout class, Naruto couldn't stop thinking about Tatsuki. The more he looked at her, the more his mind wandered to romantic and physical fantasies. What he didn't know was that Tatsuki was also thinking about him. Her heart raced as thoughts of him clouded her mind, and she was on the verge of acting on these desires right there in class. She blinked, trying to understand why she felt this way. It couldn't be just because he was paying attention to her. There was something about him, something deep inside that stirred in her. It was like he held the key to unlocking a part of her she didn't even know existed. If only she knew. After school, she went home to figure out what was happening to her body. Naruto, meanwhile, headed to speak with Urahara. Ah, Naruto, Urahara greeted as he entered the shop. I expected you earlier, where have you been? Naruto looked confused. What do you mean? I just came to ask where Rukia and Ichigo are. Urahara blinked, his expression filled with surprise. You haven't heard? I thought, being part of the Soul Society, you'd know this by now. This wasn't good. If Naruto didn't know, then Rukia was in more trouble than they had thought. Naruto, Rukia has been taken to the Soul Society. They're planning to execute her for giving Ichigo her powers. Actually, I'm sure of it. Naruto blinked, his anger slowly building. At first, he was angry at Ichigo, but then his anger turned to the Shinigami. He knew most of them, and he couldn't believe they would stand by and let Rukia be killed. Urahara continued, I've taken Ichigo for training and to awaken his Shikai. I suggest you do the same and grow stronger, he added with a small smile. I know you're going to want to rescue her. Naruto nodded, determination in his eyes, and headed out. He needed to blow off some steam by hunting down some hollows. Unfortunately, no hollows were in sight. As the sun began to set, something new started to show up. Naruto was sitting on a building rooftop, watching the town below. A dark figure appeared, creeping along the streets. Naruto noticed the figure and was intrigued. The person's spiritual pressure was overwhelming. He frowned and silently followed them, curious to see where they were headed. The figure's shape suggested it was either a girl or an incredibly handsome guy, though Naruto had made that mistake before. Suddenly, the figure stopped and turned toward him. What he saw made him gasp. At first, he noticed the woman's form-fitting suit, revealing the curves of her body. It was a sleek leotard that covered her from neck to toes, and despite its delicate appearance, Naruto could tell it could withstand powerful blows. He wasn't even sure his sword could pierce it. What truly caught his attention, however, was the mask she wore. It was fox-shaped, white with black lines running down from the eyes to the nose, resembling a design he was very familiar with. It was the same mask he had worn when he was part of the Anbu. It was his own fox mask, which must have been passed down through generations to this girl. It was fascinating. Before he could process it further, Naruto felt spiked chains wrapping around him. Thanks to his reflexes, he quickly formed a barrier of spiritual energy around his body, feeling the sharp barbs press against the shield. Another figure appeared behind him, holding the chain's ends. Shadow clone, Naruto thought, his eyes widening. With a flash step, he was behind the first girl, grabbing her mask. With a sharp tug, he removed it, revealing dark hair that brushed his nose as he turned her around. But before he could see her face, she vanished. Another clone, he muttered. Girl, you're way out of your league, he said with a grin. Standing tall, he closed his eyes and focused. He held out his hands and softly said, Hakufuku, white crawl. A wave of spiritual energy surged from him, flooding the area. There were several poofs as the clones dissipated, but only one remained, and he heard the sound of a thump to his right. He quickly searched and found the girl. He knelt down, gently lifting the mask, and saw the familiar black hair before uncovering her face. His eyes widened. Tatsuki, he asked, blinking in surprise. What the hell? Why was Tatsuki using ninjutsu? This confused him greatly. She didn't seem like the type to practice jutsu. And how was she channeling spiritual energy into it? He had been trying to master that for years. Shaking his head, he lifted her up and began walking. He might as well take her home and pretend like nothing had happened. As he did this, his mind wandered. How had she seen him? He had left his Gigi back at his apartment, resting on his bed. Did that mean she'd always been able to see him and just ignored it? This whole situation was baffling. Without thinking, he passed right through the walls of their apartment. He then paused, wondering how it was even possible with her. His eyes widened. Could it be that her body isn't really hers? He mused quietly. He quickly slipped into her room and saw her physical form lying there. Strange, he thought. This body still breathes, unlike a Gigi, which is just a lifeless shell. A potent jutsu must have been cast on her family, he calmly concluded. One that bound ninja abilities into her spirit. He started to think aloud. He gently placed her spiritual form into her physical body. Her body glowed softly before she sank back into a deeper sleep. Who cast this jutsu? He wondered silently, scanning her. His eyes landed on something curious on her neck, a small birthmark oddly familiar. Where had he seen that mark before? His mind flashed to a memory of Anko. No way, he stifled a laugh, a quiet chuckle escaping his lips. Tatsuki is a descendant of Anko, and the curse mark, diluted over time, passed down the family line. He couldn't help but laugh harder. Well, I always had a thing for Anko, so it's only fitting that I'd fall for her descendant. He considered the implications. The seal in her system must have transformed her soul into that of a ninja. A grin spread across his face. A ninja's soul. She'll show those second division ninjas what she's made of. Does she know? He thought. I'll talk to her about it tomorrow. He walked back toward his room, casting one last glance at the sleeping girl. Despite how things had started, today was ending on a surprisingly positive note. Suddenly, screams and roars pierced the air. His eyes snapped open. Fire raged all around him, licking at his skin as if trying to consume him. His room had vanished, replaced by the night sky. He saw Rukia retreating, followed by his other friends running from something. A massive orange claw shot through the air and snatched them all. Without hesitation, Naruto leaped into the air, discarding his physical form and wielding his Zanpakuto. He recoiled in shock at the sight before him. The nine-tailed fox stood in the middle of the city, its 9 tails swishing behind it. The creature grinned, ruby eyes glinting in the darkness. Naruto, the fox's voice boomed as deep as ever. You're weak. You can never hope to contain me for long, it taunted, chuckling darkly. Naruto growled and twisted his blade. Rise, Shiryo Kitsune, he muttered calmly, activating his Shikai. With a burst of speed, he rushed forward, kicking off buildings as he closed in on the demon fox. But the 9 tails was swift. It swatted him back each time he drew near, knocking him into the rooftops. He slammed his fist into the ground, sending debris flying into the air. Without hesitation, he sent the rocks hurtling at the fox's eyes. The creature laughed, snapping the rocks up in its gaping maw. A blue flame flared at the tip of one tail, whipping forward and narrowly missing Naruto. Then, all 9 tails flared with blazing blue flames, pulling back as if preparing to launch a devastating strike. A clap of thunder rang out as something struck the side of the fox's head. A figure landed beside Naruto, his blonde hair whipping in the wind, generated by the impact. 4 bone-like tails twisted behind him, All pointed at the fallen fox, waiting for it to rise. Turning his head, the figure revealed a fox-like mask covering his face, his glowing red eyes peering through the slits. He fixed his gaze on the blonde Shinigami. "Naruto," he said softly, his voice calm, "it's interesting that we meet like this." A soft chuckle escaped him. Naruto blinked. "Who are you, Hollow?" he asked, sizing up the boy. His attire resembled his old ninja gear, though this version was black and white. The jacket opened to reveal his bare chest, marked by the hollow hole in his stomach. The boy's eyes shifted, a smile evident on his face. He reached up and removed the mask with ease, revealing a familiar face. Naruto staggered back, eyes wide. "But, how?" The second Naruto grinned. "That big creature over there and the seal from our dad." A spark of realization lit up Naruto's face. "I think the pervy sage once mentioned something about that," he mused. "The fourth seal split the Nine-Tails' power into two halves, yin and yang." He shook his head. "I never imagined it would play out like this." The Hollow's expression shifted. "Neither did I. It wasn't until I became an Arankar that all my memories returned." The second Naruto smiled again. "It's strange, being a Hollow. But I'm not evil, not in a million years." "Feels like it's been that long," the other one said. "But yeah, I'm not evil either. I'm trying to deal with someone far worse than Orochimaru or the Akatsuki combined." "Incredible, who could be worse than them?" The hollow-feed Naruto turned and pointed to the beast, which was now back on its feet. On top of the creature was a figure, but to the blue-eyed Naruto, the figure's face was obscured. He turned to the other Naruto. "Who is that?" he asked. The red-eyed boy spoke, but Naruto couldn't catch the name. "He is," the boy seemed taken aback. "I can't say his name," he mumbled. He shook his head. "Never mind that for now. We need to join forces. We need all our power for what lies ahead." Naruto shook his head. "I can't do that, I don't even know how." He ran his clawed fingers through his hair. The other Naruto's tails twitched. "To be honest, all we need to do is touch." They began to feel a force pulling them away from each other. They tried to resist it, but it was futile. He shook his head. "Listen, we weren't meant to be apart. Once we touch, the universe will take care of the rest." He held out his hand, his tails slamming into the ground to slow his movement. Naruto growled, feeling the force pulling him. "Fine." He turned his blue eyes back to the other boy, his armor transforming back into his sword as he reached out his hand. Their hands met, and a blinding white light radiated out, engulfing them both. His mind spiraled, and he felt as though he was falling. He heard a distant banging sound. Then he heard his own voice, like a whisper in his head. "Come find me, Naruto, we must unite once more." His eyes snapped open. With a startled yelp, he fell off his bed and quickly stood up, scanning his surroundings. Everything seemed normal, no destruction. Then, the banging started. "Naruto," a girl's voice shouted from the other side of the door. "Come on, open up." He rushed to the door and opened it, revealing Tatsuki's smiling face. "Hey, sleepyhead," she said, looking down, her face turning red. "Well, at least one of you is awake." The blonde boy looked down, blushing at his tented boxers before quickly covering himself. It's natural," he stammered as he looked for something to wear. "Hey, listen," Tatsuki said, sitting on his bed. "I had a strange dream about you," she said quietly. Naruto blinked, confused if she was referring to the day before. She chuckled. "I was a ninja and you were some kind of, I don't know, spirit warrior," she shrugged. "Anyway, we fought and you totally kicked my butt." Sighing, Naruto sat next to her. "Actually, that wasn't a dream," he said sheepishly. "We did fight. You just fought me while you were asleep." The black-haired girl cocked her head. "Explain, Naruto," she said seriously. He ran a hand through his hair and took a deep breath. Then he began to explain everything. His past life, how he became a Shinigami, how he ended up here, and even told her about their shared history. He kept his relationship with Rukia to himself, though. "Then I found out that Rukia was taken back to the Soul Society to face execution for giving Ichigo her Shinigami powers," he said, shaking his head. "So, I need to help." Tatsuki was trying to process everything. What really shocked her was his relationship with Rukia. She sighed and laid back. "So, you're a ninja from the past, and I'm the descendant of a ninja you were close to." "Well, we were a little more than friends," he shook his head. "I had feelings for her, and now I have feelings for her descendant." She blinked, surprised by his frankness. Then she realized he was still talking out loud. "How can you like two girls at once?" she asked. He paused and blushed. "Well, actually, in my time, if you were the last of your clan, you could take more than one lover, as many as you needed to rebuild your clan." Naruto looked at her. "I guess it comes naturally to me," he shrugged. "And it's not like I love one more than the other. I like you as much as I like Rukia." He thought briefly of his feelings for Soifang. Tatsuki grinned. All right, I can live with that, as long as Rukia can too. And any other girls you bring into your harem. She laughed when he blushed, then she became serious. So, how can I help save Rukia? She asked. He blinked. Well, I could take you to Kisuke Urahara's shop. He's going to train me and Ichigo. I'm sure he won't mind if you train with us. He smiled. She nodded. All right, so give me one of those pills to get my ninja body back. She looked around. Where are they? She asked. He pulled out the PZ dispenser and popped out 2 pills, handing one to her. He swallowed his and fell back onto his bed. She looked around, expecting him to be standing there, but then remembered that he had told her those with no spiritual awareness couldn't see Shinigami or hollows. Quickly, she popped the pill into her mouth and swallowed it. A tingling sensation followed. Then she found herself standing in front of Naruto. He smirked. So it worked, he said, flashing a grin her way. She examined herself in a mirror, blinking at the full-body black attire and mask she now wore. She pulled the mask up onto her head. This feels odd, but I think I can get used to it, she mused. He nodded, taking her hand as they leaped toward the wall. Naruto laughed at her shriek as they soared through the wall and landed on the roof of another building. Remember, spirit forms, he chuckled. She shot him a glare before pulling her mask back into place. Let's just go, she muttered. He grinned as they headed toward Urahara's shop. Upon arriving, Naruto led her inside and explained everything to Kisuke. The man with the straw hat seemed thrilled by the turn of events. You'll train with the others, Kisuke said to her, and Naruto here will train with Ichigo once he recovers his powers. She blinked in confusion. Others? She asked. Kisuke merely shook his head, handing her directions to the training grounds. With a slight huff, she kissed Naruto on the cheek, replaced her mask, and dashed off. Naruto blushed under Kisuke's knowing gaze before following him into the basement. Kisuke explained that Ichigo was in the process of regaining his Shinigami abilities. While waiting for Ichigo to emerge, Naruto began his training. He was aiming for Bankai, but lacked the power to achieve it just yet. For the next 3 days, Naruto honed his sword skills and shunpo. When Ichigo finally regained his powers, Kisuke wasted no time in challenging him. Naruto watched with a smirk as Ichigo was swiftly overwhelmed. He's still weak, even his Zanpakuto broke, Naruto thought. However, when Ichigo released his Shikai, Naruto was impressed, especially when he managed to knock off Urahara's hat. Then it was Naruto's turn to spar with Ichigo. Brandishing his blade with the flat side facing the ground, Naruto spoke. So, tell me, are all your Zanpakuto's forms this large? Ichigo raised an eyebrow. What does that mean? He asked. Naruto shook his head. Each Zanpakuto has 3 forms, he explained, slashing through the air. This is the basic form, though yours is larger than most. The next form is the released form, unlocked by knowing your Zanpakuto's name. Ichigo nodded, absorbing the info. Naruto grinned, charging at Ichigo. The clash of metal rang out as Ichigo blocked his attack. The final form requires years of training, Naruto said as they continued to fight. He noted that Ichigo was fast, faster than he had been before releasing his Zanpakuto. Spinning around, Naruto knocked Ichigo back, grinning. Rise, Shiryo Kitsune. Power erupted from him, lifting dust into the air. Before it even settled, Naruto leaped toward Ichigo, his clawed armor crashing against the flat side of Ichigo's blade. The battle raged on, their attacks never quite making contact, but creating deep gouges in the ground around them. They fought relentlessly, pausing only to rest and recover before continuing to wreak havoc on Kisuke's training grounds. At times, Naruto felt the fox's energy flow through him, giving him an edge. But he also noticed a strange, yet familiar, energy within Ichigo, making him wonder if others like him, those with hollow power, existed. Meanwhile, Kisuke was preparing to open a gate to the Sarete. Naruto had his own way of getting there swiftly, but if he wanted to help, he couldn't be seen with them. When the time came to leave, Naruto sent a message back to the Sarete to open a gate for him. Before he left, Tatsuki ran up, pulling off her mask with a grin. She threw her arms around him and kissed him deeply. Just something to fight for, she whispered, before going through the gate. Ignoring Kisuke's knowing look, Naruto went outside to open his own gate. As he walked through, he wondered if he could finally unlock his Bankai. He felt confident he had enough power, but he wasn't sure he could achieve it. His mind drifted to a dream he'd had. Another me, he murmured, and someone more dangerous than anyone I've ever faced. He chuckled. I couldn't imagine anything more dangerous than facing the whole Sarete, he mused with a grin. Could be fun. With that, he broke into a run, looking forward to the upcoming battle. Naruto absent-mindedly touched his side, where his missing Zanpakuto would normally rest. He felt strangely unarmed without it, but it was necessary if he wanted to see Rukia. Apparently, his close ties to her made him a risk. He snickered to himself. He found that to be a rather fitting description. With Shirio's power, he'd blow his way out with Rukia in his arms. But for now, without his blade, he was only able to visit her. His calm composure shattered the moment he spotted Renji leaving with Byakuya. Seeing the redhead's raised eyebrows sent Naruto into fits of uncontrollable laughter. He was still gathering himself as he was escorted to where Rukia was confined. Of course, all levity disappeared the moment he saw her. She was standing by the window, gazing out at Sakyoku Hill, the light filtering in and casting her silhouette in a soft glow. She looked stunning, but it wasn't her beauty that caught his eye. It was the expression on her face. She appeared sorrowful, but more than that, there was an air of resignation in her gaze, as if she had already accepted her fate. His eye twitched slightly. That expression irritated him. "You look good in white," he remarked, walking toward her, "but that expression really ruins the effect." She didn't turn toward him, but he could tell from the way her shoulders tensed that she'd heard him. She knew he was about to scold her, and she didn't want to face him. Naruto knew that if she looked at him, she'd lose composure. He scratched his chin. "You know, I'm happy for Renji, but those eyebrows are a bit much. Is he compensating for something?" There was a slight giggle from her, and he grinned. "I get why he's been avoiding me since I got back," he shook his head. "I'm going to give him a piece of my mind later. And if he thinks bigger eyebrows will make him stronger, he's sorely mistaken. And if he dares bring up the springtime of youth, I'll throw him through a wall." He stopped speaking when he heard Rukia start laughing. She turned to him, still laughing. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked between breaths. He chuckled. "A friend of mine had huge eyebrows, not as extravagant as Renji's, but still," he said. "He was obsessed with youth and trained like crazy," he shook his head. "One of the toughest guys I knew." "Sounds like you admired him," she said softly. He shrugged. "I respected his strength, his persistence," he grinned. "Especially when it came to chasing after women, even if they weren't interested." He couldn't help but smile at the memory. Even after Sasuke left, Sakura never really got over him. But Lee. He never stopped, at least until a woman came to the village who had more attitude than he could handle. She captured his heart instantly. "A bit like you, Naruto," she teased, looking at him knowingly. "Before I was brought here, I was aware of your flirtation with that girl Tatsumi." "Tatsuki," he corrected her with a smirk. "And I thought we already talked about that night he started to blush a little. She frowned. "I'm still getting used to that," she said. "But even if I accept it, I still have the right to feel jealous of the other women in your life." She stepped toward him and placed her hands on his shoulders. "You're the first man I've ever truly fallen for," she smiled faintly. "Honestly, I never thought I'd feel this way about anyone. I worked hard to keep my emotions locked away." He chuckled, leaning forward to rest their foreheads together. "You were so polite when we first met, but then you turned out to be a little violent," he snickered. She gave him a light slap on the back of his head before kissing him. The kiss was intense, and she even started nudging him toward the wall, but he stopped her. "That can wait," he said firmly. "I'm not letting you turn this into a last night together moment." She pulled back with a frown, giving him a stern look. "Naruto, what are you planning?" she asked, knowing him all too well. He grinned as he started moving toward the exit. "Nothing at all," he said, shaking his head. "I don't have any plans. I figured I'd just wing it when those Ryoka show up." Rukia stared at him for a moment. "Isn't that a little irresponsible?" she asked, wondering what exactly was going through his mind. Naruto paused before he left the room. "Back when I was alive, when I was just starting as a ninja, I did irresponsible things all the time," he grinned at her. "It became so common, they called me the #1 hyperactive knucklehead ninja." He chuckled. "A title I'm still proud of." He gave her a small wave before disappearing. Rukia sighed softly. "I fell for a reckless man," she murmured, making a face. "Why do I always end up surrounded by guys like him? Both Renji and Ichigo are just the same." She sat down near the window, all her sadness forgotten for the moment. Naruto always knew how to lift her spirits. As he exited the tower, Zanpakuto securely strapped to his waist, Naruto pondered his next move. Despite his confidence, he knew he needed a plan. At his current strength, he was painfully aware of his limitations. He, Rukia, and Renji had been around the same level, though he and Renji were better suited for physical combat. Rukia had always been the strategist of their trio. Ichigo was similarly skilled, but against someone like Byakuya, they were nothing more than targets. He feared they'd not only have to face Byakuya, but all the captains as well. Their only chance was to unlock Bankai, but that required years of dedication, time they simply didn't have. Pausing, he sank onto a bench, his fingers running through his hair. This felt all too familiar, like the Chunin exams. He was powerless and had no one to guide him. Don't be so certain, kid, a deep voice echoed inside his mind like a thunderclap. You've got an edge over others like you. The voice chuckled darkly. Naruto focused his senses inward, looking toward the door that contained the beast. What does that mean? He asked, a hint of suspicion in his voice. Am I supposed to trust you now? You spent years trying to manipulate me into using your power so you could break free and control my body. He shook his head, offering a hollow laugh. And here you are, trying it again. Naruto growled lowly at the red eye staring at him. I used your power when I had no other choice, but now I've got time to find another way. Not much, a soft voice came from behind him. Shiryo emerged from her door. Naruto. I hate to admit this, but I agree with the fox, she said, her displeasure evident. Using his power could help me manifest physically, and we could start Bankai training. It could speed up the process, granting you years of training in mere days. The blonde sighed. Shiryo, we both know what would happen if he ever got free, he replied, his tone grim. He's one of the 9 great demons, born from the ultimate monster. Without a body to contain most of his power, he would destroy Soul Society and obliterate every world. I'm not bragging, but the kid's right. The fox's voice rang with amusement. If I got control of his spiritual body, nothing could stop me. I'd feast on every soul here and then move on to Hukomundo to devour those so-called demons. The red eye flared bright. Naruto didn't respond, simply waving a hand to dismiss the creature. Shiryo nodded in understanding. I get it, Naruto, she said, but he won't be able to take control if we use his power for our training. She smiled faintly. We'll be using him, as a source of energy, to manifest the power needed for Bankai training. Naruto sighed again, rubbing his face. If you think it'll work, then I trust you, Shiryo, not him. He walked over to her and cupped her face in his hands. You're my better judgment. If you say this is the right path, I'll follow, even if it's not what I want. His inner spirit smiled at him. Of course, she said with a chuckle. Now, I've got preparations to make. You go find us a secluded spot to train, somewhere we won't be disturbed. Naruto nodded. I already have a place in mind. Can't wait for our training session, the fox's voice echoed, but Naruto simply ignored it as he tuned back into reality. He sighed and stretched, readying himself for the task ahead. He turned and headed toward the 2nd Division headquarters. As he walked, his thoughts wandered to Ichigo and his group, especially the strange black cat. The male voice had caught him off guard, but it didn't take long to figure out who she was. Everyone in the 2nd Division knew Yoruichi Shihoin. Soi Fong, in particular, looked up to her, even though she tried to hide it. Naruto could see it clearly. Soi Fong generated both love and hate toward her former captain. After some reflection, Naruto decided it was best to avoid bringing up Yoruichi's name. Soi Fong hid a deep sadness beneath her stern demeanor. Despite her strength, she lacked something crucial that would make her truly powerful. Perhaps, confronting her feelings for Yoruichi was what she needed. It seemed likely that the two would face off in the coming conflict. Soi Fong's strength could pose a threat to Ichigo's group, including Ichigo himself. If Yoruichi intended to help, she would have to fight her former student. Naruto sighed, hoping Soi Fong would find peace with herself one day. He shook off his thoughts and returned to the matter at hand. Yoruichi had told him that if he needed a place to train, there was a secret area beneath the headquarters. She had used it for her own private training, and though intense, she believed it could help him if he felt ready for it. Naruto hoped he could find the place and, more importantly, use it without getting caught. He also had to keep it hidden from Soi Fong. He couldn't risk her discovering his training, especially not with his plans to rescue Rukia. She already knew how close he was to Rukia, and anything out of the ordinary would give him away. He felt a sense of relief when he arrived at the headquarters and found it empty. It appeared everyone was out preparing for any potential conflicts. Soi Fong was always thorough in her preparations. If there was even the faintest hint of danger, she would be ready. Her focus on keeping her people prepared was something he had come to respect. Entering the quiet building, he made his way to the captain's quarters. Once inside, he began to search, being careful not to disturb anything that could reveal his presence. After 30 minutes, he still found nothing. He wished Yoruichi had been more specific about what exactly he was supposed to be looking for. Damn it, he muttered, suddenly understanding why Yoruichi hadn't given him clear instructions. The former captain of the 2nd Division was still teaching him lessons. Shaking his head, he sank into the chair and exhaled heavily. I don't need this right now, he murmured. I've already got a body-snatching demon to deal with, not to mention rescuing Rukia. I don't have time for riddles. Frustrated, he kicked the desk hard, sending it sliding across the floor until it hit the far wall. Then he heard a faint click, and the floor beneath the desk began to slide away, revealing a small opening. He raised an eyebrow, walked over to the desk, and knelt to examine the hole. Seriously, he muttered. How many times did she have to kick the desk across the room to discover this? Sighing at how simple the test had been, he repositioned the desk and pulled it back to its original spot. Luckily for him, the floor didn't close back up immediately. It wasn't until he dropped down into the hole that he heard the sound of the floor sealing behind him, leaving him in total darkness. Pressing his back against the wall, he decided to move forward. After a few moments, the ground began to slope downward, and he struggled to maintain his footing, nearly losing his balance. Eventually, the slope ended, and he dropped into what seemed to be a vast space. From the sound of it, he was in a very large area. He formed a small ball of light in his hands and tossed it into the air. The Kaido was simple but effective for lighting up a dark place. The ball exploded and scattered smaller orbs of light across the cavern. As his eyes adjusted to the new illumination, he couldn't help but laugh at what he saw. The space could only be described as a cavern, immense enough to hold a large building. The fact that no one had noticed this place was astounding. From where he stood, a single staircase spiraled upwards toward a massive throne. Alongside the stairs were miniature mountains of varying heights, spreading out in both directions. This is incredible, he muttered under his breath, taking in the view. I agree, the fox voice spoke again. This place is strange. I can feel a pressure on your Ryuryoku coming from that throne. Naruto raised an eyebrow and took a cautious step toward the throne. The moment his foot touched the first step, he felt his Ryatsu being forced back deep inside him. He felt weak, not drained, but as if he had been reduced to a human again, maybe even less. It was as though his Ryuryoku had reverted to that of a child's. Be careful, the fox warned. Advancing too quickly could damage your Ryuryoku permanently. Naruto frowned, feeling as if he had just put on a set of heavy weights, the kind Lee often used. Reluctantly, he stepped back and felt his energy return to normal, his body lightening with the release. This place is powerful, he said softly, scratching his chin. It seems like it's a training ground for controlling Ryuryoku and enhancing Ryatsu output. With the right training, I could grow stronger here in no time. Exactly. With my power and Shiryo's guidance, reaching Bankai will be a piece of cake. The fox chuckled before pausing. Seems like she's ready. What about you? Naruto sighed. I guess I'm about as ready as I'll ever be. What do I need to do? He asked, a bit apprehensive but determined enough to follow through. Calm your heart and draw on my energy. Instead of using it for yourself, project it outward like you would Kaido, the fox instructed. Pull as much as you can. Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath, reaching inside himself for the power that had always been there. It was a force he had spent years avoiding, only using it when absolutely necessary. But now, he was ready to call on it. Gripping the dark energy with all his might, he pulled it out, directing it in front of him. For a moment, the energy flooded the cavern, a dense, suffocating aura far heavier than the one coming from the throne. Then, with a snap, it coalesced into a single point. Within moments, it took shape, becoming Shiryo. She appeared in battle attire, her expression fierce, and a copy of her own blade at her waist. It was strange to see her like this. There was none of the kind energy she usually emanated. The energy coming from her was commanding, almost intimidating, as though she had become someone else entirely. She's not joking, the fox remarked, stifling a yawn. You're going to have a lot of fun with her training, but I'm going to rest for a while. Using up almost all of my energy has worn me out. It won't be much fun for you either. Naruto stopped in his tracks. Why? He asked, though he already felt an odd fatigue within himself. Whether you want to admit it or not, my energy's always been there for you, to heal your body and your spirit, the fox explained, its tone softer now. When you were alive, you had more stamina than anyone, and now my energy is intertwined with yours. You're going to need a lot of training to get used to being without my constant support. Now leave me be, I need rest. After that, there was silence. Strangely enough, Naruto felt off. He glanced at Shiryo. So, how do we begin? He asked. She glanced at him before looking at the throne. We start with that, she said evenly, beginning to ascend the stairs. Naruto was taken aback. She seemed unaffected by the stairs, walking up them effortlessly. It wasn't long before he realized the energy from the throne was flowing into Shiryo. When she reached the top, she sat down. Her body radiated power. Now try to reach me, Naruto, she spoke softly. Once you touch me, you'll have reached the next stage. She looked down at him. But don't forget, you won't truly master this without defeating me first, she smirked. If you're too weak, you won't reach me at all. And if you fail, Rukia will die. Naruto's face turned serious. He could tell Shiryu was fully committed to his training. He stepped toward the stairs, expecting to feel the same pressure as before, but nothing came. He grinned. This will be easy, he said as he began running up the stairs. But before he knew it, he was sent flying back down, feeling the pressure hit him like a ton of bricks. He landed on his feet, slightly dazed, but his eyes widened when he saw what was in front of him. It was a perfect clone of himself. Same blonde hair, same blue eyes, and the same confident grin. Around him, thousands of his clones were seated on the mountains in the cavern. He realized the clone before him was the missing one from the lowest mountain. Oh, I get it, he said. You created copies of me, each with different levels of pressure, right? He sighed. And I bet they're all as strong as I am. The clone in front of him smirked and waved him on. All right, I get it. I'm a bit of an idiot, Naruto muttered, drawing his blade. The clone did the same and the two clashed. The pressure wore him down and he was knocked back once more. Damn it, he cursed, swinging his blade again. Rise, Shiryu Kitsune. Energy surged around him, but it quickly faded away. I should have mentioned earlier, Shiryu said. You're not drawing from my energy anymore. You'll have to rely on your own strength, no help from me or the fox. She was right, just as the fox had said. He'd taken their powers for granted. The blow he'd taken had winded him more than he'd expected. He took a breath and gathered his resolve. Fine, he muttered. I'll get stronger and add my own power to yours. He charged again. The two swords clashed repeatedly, their movements a blur, but every contact drained a bit more of his strength. He needed to consciously manage his Reiatsu to avoid it being forcefully reduced. After a particularly brutal strike that sent him tumbling back down the stairs, he groaned, Damn, I can't just lower my Reiatsu like that. He paused, thinking, I'll overpower it then. I'll push my Reiatsu to the limit in my next strike. With renewed determination, he raised his blade high, forcing his Reiatsu to surge. He struck hard, knocking the clone's sword out of its hand, and his blade found its mark, destroying the copy. I did it, he laughed, breathing heavily. Just need to, but suddenly his body felt weak. What? He said quietly. Why do I feel so drained? You don't have the fox's energy anymore, Shiryu said, her voice carrying some disappointment. You can't just burn yourself out in one move. You'll exhaust yourself completely. Naruto sighed and slumped against the stairs, rubbing his face. I thought I had it, he mumbled, looking up at the other clones. There's no way I can get through all of these by just overpowering them. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to regain some energy. I didn't realize how weak I've become, he muttered. You're not weak, Shiryu said, her tone calm. You just haven't learned yet, just like when you were a child striving to become a ninja. She softened her gaze. Even the strong must continue to grow. Slowly, Naruto stood up, forcing a grin. At least I got one down, he stretched. Only a few thousand more to go. He gripped his sword again, determination flashing in his eyes. Let's go to the next level. With the first clash, he felt the pressure increase. It was clear this was going to get harder with each clone. He needed to find a way to balance his Reiatsu. Too much and he'd exhaust himself. Too little and he'd be crushed by the pressure. He focused on defense, studying the rhythm of his opponent's attacks. As he went through the motions, he began to find his groove, defeating the next clone. Each time he climbed higher, the rhythm shifted slightly, forcing him to adjust. He learned quickly, alternating between defense and offense as he began to master the pattern. Shiryu observed from the top, a hint of admiration in her gaze. Despite being drained, Naruto was learning faster than she had anticipated. However, he still lacked the strength to defeat the highest-tier clones. Time passed, and it became clear to Shiryu that his stamina was waning. His downfall came when a new version of Naruto appeared, brandishing Shiryu's Shikai. What's this about, Shiryu? Naruto called, confused. She shrugged. You can't access my powers, but these clones are part of me. They can use my Shikai, especially the stronger ones. She fixed her gaze on him. And that's not all. Some of them are even using his power. Naruto could see she was speaking the truth. The clones nearest to her were wielding her Shikai, their eyes glowing red. But they lacked tails or masks, which he saw as a good sign. I'm not giving up, Naruto declared with a grin. Let's keep going, I've still got plenty of time. He charged forward with a battle cry, ready to face whatever came next. Shiryu watched him, a slight smirk forming. Naruto, even without the fox's power, was relentless. His persistence was always entertaining. She could feel her Bankai waiting to be released, knowing it would be soon. Naruto, reach me. Soon we will be stronger than ever, she thought, the excitement building.